an 8-bit Rocket Studios production.
So, yeah.
And why did you choose the ST over a PC
Or the Amiga?
That's
because it's Atari.
It's Atari,
Yeah.
right.
Because it's Atari.
Exactly.
And of course it was like the next thing. And
was there even any question of it?
No.
See?
There was no question. Obviously.
We were children of the Silicon Revolution, an X generation conscripted to fight the console and home computer wars. A product of an analog 70s childhood, we came of digital age in the 80s, believing we could affect the world 8 bits at a time. Armed with joysticks, full-stroke keyboards, Jolt Cola, and MTV haircuts, we proceeded into the vertical blank. There, we stayed up late at night, devising incantations from D&D rulebooks and beginners' all-purpose symbolic instruction code. Video games were the match, and programming was the fuse, as the infinite possibilities of the digital world exploded into the internet age to come. We are Generation Atari.
Into the vertical blank.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
It's going good. We have a treat today. We don't have to tell any stories or anything like that. We don't have to do any big, long, delve into anything. We're going to have an interview.
Whew, God, that's nice to hear.
I know.
We can have a break.
We have our interview with Mission Ed Possible this time. And Ed came over and he did a video of us interviewing us for his channel. And now we're returning the favor and we're going to interview Ed for our channel.
Yeah, that was a really, really fun day. I have to tell you, that was a really fun day.
It was fun. We have some stuff to talk about with him about the VCS, the 8-bits, the ST, all kinds of stuff.
Why don't we get to that right now? Then we can maybe have a little discussion afterwards.
Yeah, let's do that right now.
Generation Atari. Into the vertical blank. Generation Atari.
One note, we've tried to fix the echo in this. It's from recording in my living room. The echo is not easy to get out, but we tried. So all apologies if this is difficult to listen to. So we are here today, Steve, with Ed Possible from Mission Ed Possible. Ed, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Ed Salisbury, and I have a YouTube channel called Mission Ed Possible.
I saw Ed, started seeing Ed last year. He started on YouTube, started streaming lots of Atari 8-bit and ST gameplay sessions, and then started doing coding. So Ed's channel now past 1,000 subscribers has already zoomed past ours, but because he has a lot of content that is very compelling and that people want to see. So Ed, give us a little background on you. When did you start your Atari journey?
Let's see. I think I started as one. No, I started with the 2600. I really wanted it for Christmas. This would have been. So I'm a little younger than you guys. I was born in '75. So for me, it was. I want to say I was turning 7. Yeah, kind of. But I was just before. Okay. Just before. So yeah, I really wanted the 2600, and I think I got it when I was about 7. I think. And
82.
Yeah, 82. Yeah, so it was like, for me, it's like, I really wanted 2600. I don't remember seeing a specific ad or anything, but it was just, I had played arcade games, playing Pac-Man and stuff, and it's like, I really wanted the 2600. And so I was like, I really want it, and I got it for Christmas, and it was just like, epic. It was a 4-switch, so time of the,
it was that 81, that 1980 version, I believe.
Yes,
we had the 81 version.
With combat, not
those were when they made 5 million of those.
Yes.
And just shipped them out to every
Exactly.
Gemco, Fedco.
Still,
Target.
still wood grain
Exactly.
finish, but with the 4-switch.
Yes.
I know, and somewhere I know the name of that. I've totally
Yeah,
forgotten.
2600A.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So wait, so that's really interesting. So you knew you wanted Atari, but how did you know you wanted Atari? Like, what
You
did
know,
think and
I
believe of
don't
Atari?
know because, well, my cousin was really into Atari as well, but he had the computers and stuff. He never had the 2600. And so for me, and I don't know if it's just like, well, I knew Atari and then I knew I had to have this thing.
I think a 7-year-old seeing all those keys. It's
Yeah,
like, I want the
yeah.
thing that just stick a cartridge. in.
Yeah, well, for me, at that point, and I don't remember when, I also wanted to make video games.
Of course.
And so for me, the 2600 was kind of a stepping stone to computers, and that was the thing. It was, yes, I love video games and getting the 2600, but what I really wanted was, an Atari 800.
Yeah.
Got a 400 instead.
400 flying machine. Did you on the 2600 when you saw there was a basic programming cartridge? Did that excite you?
Not really, because I was like, how are we going to be able to do this? And it's like, I remember seeing a prototype at one point in a magazine of a keyboard, like an actual keyboard.
That's the
Graduate,
graduate.
yeah. And it was a thing. It was like, oh, that'd be actually really cool. I had no idea the capabilities of the machine. There's like no way it could actually do anything with it unless you put on a whole other computer on top of it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just a stepping stone. I wanted to get into the computer, and one of the issues I also had was, I had played the arcade games. The 2600 versions of those were always kind of lacking, and so I always felt like, like we were talking about Pac-Man before, it's just kind of like, but then, for me, it was a computer.
When you got the 400, so with the 400, that must have been, how old were you when you got the 400?
I think I was 9, so it was
84.
just, yeah.
So with the 400,
I also got a 410 program
there we go. I was
recorder,
gonna ask, what came with your 400?
Yeah, a 410 program recorder, a basic cartridge, and I had the programmer.
You had the
box.
programmer,
I had
yeah.
the programmer.
Oh,
So I had that manual that was not written for learning at all. The spiral.
Yes, I have that
the
too,
three.
yeah.
I actually still have it as well. And it was like I was actually recently going through it. I'm going. No wonder I couldn't understand.
Yeah,
this
the
as a
Commodore
kid.
guys are so lucky because apparently with the Commodore 64, the manual is amazing.
Yeah.
Really?
When it comes to teaching how to program.
It's like
Lots of kids learned because of that.
Oh, wow.
When the Atari 130XE came out, the manual was close.
Yeah.
But the Commodore one came with a lot of stuff in it, and we didn't like the Atari 8-bit. They were like, wanted to hide it from you, right? That was it. Like it barely even came with when you Atari 800 and 400 didn't come with the basic cartridge like the program.
Yeah, you had to
There's
get
actually
that.
nothing you could do with that at the box.
Yeah. Memo pad.
No.
That's
The
what you
first-
could use.
Remember we were lucky because our 800 came secondhand from our dad's
Oh, right.
friend.
So you got a
which
bunch
came
of
with
stuff.
stuff. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But the one thing we knew is that the book Your Atari Computer was the book to get. Did you get that?
No, and that's the thing. I really didn't have. See, I grew up in a very small town. We didn't have stores with Atari stuff in it, really.
Oh man.
And so, like, so for me, it was kind of, I was really cloistered in our area, and I did have my cousin and his friend that did have Atari stuff, but I didn't really get to hang out with them much and be able to learn much. So I was really kind of working in a vacuum, and I had basic, and I had the manual, and I just was trying to figure stuff out. I also had subscriptions to magazines.
Yeah. What are your
So
favorites?
like Family Computing, Enter. There was a couple other magazines I had. So I didn't have compute. That would've been nice.
Antique and Analog would have been perfect.
Oh, Antique would have been amazing. My cousin had Antique, and I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. So I did so many type-in programs on a 400, mind you. And it was funny.
Saving them to tape, too.
Exactly. My saving to tape and then just loading and just waiting and maybe it'll work. I had started on basic then, and it was challenging. But then I think a year or two later, I got a 130XE. That was like the epitome. Once I got that and a 1050 drive. So for me, it's like now I am rocking. So yeah.
So you,
and a 1027 too. My parents, they went crazy one year.
that's great.
Yeah, during Christmas time, that was the only time I ever got anything. Was Christmas time. Right?
Well, they
Us too, right?
Yeah, it's
pretty
just
much
always
right.
been the thing, right?
That's how it was back then.
So I got 1027 letter quality printer. And funny enough, I was just talking to a friend of mine about this thing. He was like, letter quality? I don't understand what the... And I was trying to explain to him, it was like, take a typewriter, but only make it be able to print stuff. And I was talking about the fact that none of these actually exist that work. Yeah, they're all destroyed from time, you know? And but yeah, an Atari writer. I did get Atari.
Yes,
writer
I loved
too.
Atari
So it was
writer.
like I can
Alan
also
Alda.
type stuff. Yeah, here you go.
Yeah. So you had the Atari 8-bit.
Yeah.
That means you had it for quite a number of years.
Yes.
What were your favorite games on the Atari 100?
On the 8-bit, I played a lot of Asteroids.
Asteroids.
I did really like Asteroids on the 8-bit.
Four-player version.
Yes, exactly.
People ask the question, do you know the reason why it's blue?
No.
Blue and green.
Uh-uh.
Because the reason why it's blue and green is because for some reason you chose better colors for the other ships because you're green and you can barely see yourself. If you had made Asteroids white and blue or something, it would have been better, but he wanted to get 4 colors on to show 4 different colors. So when he's testing it and playing it, it's got all 4 colors on it. It looks great. We were playing by yourself, you got a green ship that's on black with blue asteroids.
The big thing is, I didn't have people to play with hardly. I was a late in life child, so I was kind of an only child, and so I did have my nephew would come by and we would play occasionally, but for the most part, I was playing solo. So for me, I didn't ever play multiplayer Asteroids.
Yeah,
So.
actually, we had never played either. There were 2 of us. We didn't
I don't
play
think
that.
we ever hit select far enough to find that.
Yeah. But the one of the other games that I played a lot of on there was Star League Baseball.
Oh yeah.
And what was cool about that is, so again, I was late in life child, so I had older brothers. There were 13 to 18 years older than me. So they weren't interested in the video game thing. Whatever. They were off doing their own thing. But when I got baseball on there, they were hooked. They were like, so we played hours and hours and hours of Star League Baseball, and we were just taking turns and just having a blast with it. And so to be honest, one of my major memories from that time was playing baseball.
That's great because you could play with your brothers.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a way for me to bond with them.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that I didn't really have anything. At that point, I didn't have music to bond with them. I wasn't into what they were into. It was. I didn't smoke weed. That kind of thing. It wasn't. A 10-year-old kid. No. So it wasn't. I didn't have really anything to do with them. But once we did that, that was cool.
So what is it? Star League Baseball. One of the programs was Scott Orr. Scott Orr has 78 games on Moby Games, including most of. He went to EA Sports. Most of the Madden Madden games are on his list. So So he's So there's a good pedigree from that.
That's a reason why Star League Baseball is. I know this is if anyone outside the U.S. doesn't understand this, but in the 80s, baseball games on computers were what soccer games are on the Spectrums and stuff like that. There were when you got a good one, and the Atari 8-bits didn't get a lot. There was
that
two good
Hardball,
yes.
But Star League Baseball was a game that you could play forever. Yeah, you could just play. It's so
sports
fun.
games are different now too. Back you'll see, it's funny when I'll go to a retro game store and you'll see all the NES Plus sports games. They're all just for $1,
$5,
right? I mean, nobody cares about sports games. But for us, actual sports games, we watched the evolution of the sports games from home run to up to Star League. And for us, each sports game has its own things that we love about it, and they aren't like I would buy a mint copy of Star League. I would spend a lot of money on that, right? Whereas a lot of people wouldn't, other people, they don't understand like sports games weren't done year over year. There wasn't a new updated version. So for us, sports games actually hold a different place.
So any other baseball? Like you mentioned hardball. Hardball is good. And then what? Do you ever play micro league baseball? It's just
probably once or twice, but that was the one I had. So it was like I had Star League baseball. That was the one, and that's the one I played.
We hacked micro league baseball.
Well, and micro league was a stats game though.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So it was like a player manager.
We hacked it. So we had ways to make it so that I don't know why we'd hack it, but we hacked it in a way. I'll explain hacking to it later. I don't want to do it. Hacking micro baseball is really fun. Something for another discussion.
Okay, sure.
Anyway, so you're in your journey with the Atari 8-bit, and during that journey, the NES is coming out and things like that. What happens with your friends that are now getting NESs, but you have an Atari 130 XT?
Yeah, at that
you can't
point,
even buy new software for this computer anymore, except for maybe Federated, which I don't even know if there was one anywhere.
No.
So first of all, first question, your people I don't know, I'm saying friends in quotes because I have no idea if they were like mean kids or not, but they have NESs. But what's going on in your head when you see these things?
It definitely pangs of jealousy of kind of like looking like, wow, that's really cool. But there is stuff that I had on my computer that they didn't have.
Exactly.
Things like obviously like Super Mario Brothers platform games, that wasn't a thing on the 8-bit really. But I had Spy vs. Spy. Do you have Spy vs. Spy? Do you have some of these iconic things? Iconic for us, but for them, they don't have any concept of it. And so I personally
Minor 2049.
Minor 2049.
That's iconic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it didn't have scrolling. No. So at that point, it was. Yes, and I remember we had rented one from like the video store, and we played like Casino Kid for like forever, and some other games, Tetris and stuff, and it was cool. But what's funny is I never really felt like I wanted to get rid of my computer to go to an NES.
Right.
It was always like, okay, that's neat, but nah, I'm good. I didn't really feel like enough like jealousy to want to switch.
Did the Atari 8-bit with the letter quality printer and Atari Writer, how did that affect your schooling when you finally were in high school? You're getting towards 88. You're getting to end of junior high. You're starting to go in. You have your 8-bit. Are you able to do your schoolwork on that, or is another new computer needed to sort of?
Not really. At that point, I was, I did a lot of papers on Atari Writer. It's funny. I think I still have one of the papers that I printed out.
That's awesome.
And I did a folder, and I did a cover on the print shop and stuff. And I think I colored it.
That was really fun.
Oh yeah, the print shop was like a killer app that I never had. Unfortunately, it was one.
You had it, but you never had it.
No, actually, I never even had it. Yeah, I had it. It was the one at the school. It was like, I didn't never have it at home, but it was like, I'd always print out banners and all that crap. But yeah, I was like printing a sign, for the cover and stuff. It was like, I still have it somewhere, but. It was a story about me and Atari and stuff, and I was like, at some point I should.
That's cool, man. You should put that up.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool to put that up.
It's so rare to find those.
Exactly. And so I wrote a lot of papers. I wish I still had a lot of that stuff, but it's like one of those things, you get stuff lost to time, and it's just. It goes away. But so I definitely used it for a lot of schoolwork, and so it was neat. Yeah, so as long as I print out something and it's letter quality, it's good. I couldn't print anything cool, but I could print out papers like crazy.
So what did your parents think about this computer like thing that you were doing?
My parents were old. They were old, the older generation, and for them, they were like, they always had this phrase of like, I don't even know how to turn it on.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Your parents are probably the same age as that.
Yeah, and born in the 30s, so they were like, they had no kind of concept of any of this stuff. They knew it was going to be big. They knew that I was really interested in it, and I think they were happy that I was interested in it, but they wanted no part of it.
Yeah, and our parents, I think they saw all these technology in their lives, saw all these tech revolutions, right? radio to TV to movies, and even watching like even arcade games and stuff. They've experienced it. Maybe they weren't into it, but they knew
They knew it was going to be a thing, so.
So what happened? So you're having your Atari 8-bit, and then at some point you move from the 8-bits to something else. What was your next step?
Atari ST, of course.
Now, and when was this? How old were you at that time?
This was kind of mid-high school. This was like 1990.
Wow, okay, yeah.
So,
And why did you choose the ST over a PC
Or the Amiga?
That's a good, because it's Atari.
It's Atari, right.
Because it's Atari.
Atari.
And of course it was like
like
the
that
next thing. And
was there even any question? At the
No.
time? See,
there was no question. Obviously, it's going to be an
Obviously, it's going to
Atari.
be the Atari. Okay,
And that's what kind of I was like talking about. It's like it's this. Well, obviously,
right, exactly.
I had a friend of mine that had an Amiga, and I was like, that's kind of neat. But I had pretty much the same thing,
The Amiga's awesome, but it's not an Atari, man.
Yeah, it's not Atari. Power without the price,
Exactly.
It was it was one of those things that. I believe I bought at that point I had a job at that point, so I was able to buy my 1040 STE with my own money. It was like $400, which at that time was a lot of money for me, but yeah, so that was really kind of the major renaissance when I got
1040
into
ST
that.
had a
STE,
disk drive
yeah.
and a TV out, right?
Yes,
So
and-
that's all you
yeah.
needed was that
Yes,
unit.
and the stereo jacks
Yes,
out,
stereo jacks
and the DMA and the blitter and all that
And you
stuff.
could use the Jaguar controller
Oh,
for
yeah,
a few
yes,
things.
yes,
Use these things. Right?
Yes, exactly. It was to me, and also my best friend at the time also bought one. So
There
we
you
were
go.
both like, and we would go to user groups, which for us, the user groups were an hour away.
Yeah.
So
Understood.
and it was like, but it was our monthly thing, and we would go down.
Is that like Santa Rosa or something?
It was Santa Rosa, yes, actually. And so we would go down, and that was our monthly kind of pilgrimage down to Santa Rosa, and we'd kind of make a day out of it. And a lot of times we'd go like swap meets, and we'd go to these different things, but we would go there and just talk with people, and eventually we became like more officers, and I was a librarian and putting out like public domain discs every month and stuff for the group. And
Now, how did
it
you
was neat.
acquire, besides public domain software and the few items that were maybe available mail order or things like that, a lot of it was available mail order.
Sure.
How did you, when you wanted to play new games or new things, how were you acquiring? Were they all pirate? Were you?
A lot of it was, I did have a good friend of mine that I got a lot of the software from, but I really didn't have much in the way of a bigger group to trade with or whatever. I did find some places. I remember I actually took this machine off to college with me. I went to Cal Poly and San Luis Obispo. And I took the machine to college with me, and there were some places where I could actually, still at this time, at like 92, I was able to actually find some stores. It's like, oh my God, this is a game. It's a game. It's not a great game, but it's a game. I remember finding, it was a Panzer kickboxing.
Panzer is actually a pretty good game.
Geisha that was in it.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, it's a game, cool.
You had to get the ones that there's somehow were distributed in the U.S. somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was just always the weird packaging, and it was just, it was one of those things that it was. I didn't really have a lot until I got to college, and then I discovered W-Archive, for all public domain software and demos and all that, and that was the thing in college. I put on these demos, and at this point, this was kind of the start with the 386s and 486s. At this point, Wolf had just come out, and so people were like, "Oh, this is cool." I still had better stuff because, putting on demos and stuff and mods and all that stuff, it was just so cool.
An anecdote about moving from the ST to RC and PC stuff is in '92. Steve and I had to get PCs. Our PC, we did. It took a couple years before the PC was as good as that plain old Atari ST. Even though we had VGA and everything, the games just weren't coming out. Wolf 3D did it.
Yep.
That was the first one that's like.
I will say that the Sierra games were good though.
Yeah.
The Sierra games
were.
Yeah.
There were good games, but there wasn't any. So I was thinking more about fast action games. The PC.
Point and click games,
They're on the PC. There's lots of good games, but
Yeah.
it's like trying to emulate that ST experience.
Yes.
And obviously the STE demos, they were just they were making that thing do stuff that you wouldn't even see on a VGA machine.
Yes, exactly, and that was the thing. So I had people like play, watching demos and stuff. We played games. We had 8-player games of Chaos going, and that was epic. We would play games all the time. And the cool thing was, I was the only one with an ST in the area, so I thought. What was funny is I actually was on like Usenet or something, or one of the groups from it. It was like a local San Luis Obispo thing, and they were having like a MIDI maze party. And I'm like, what? And they had like 10 guys with STs. I'm like, hell yeah! And I brought my ST. So we played at like a 10 system MIDI maze at this guy's house. And I'm like, this is cool. I was like in like heaven, you know. It was so weird having, you know,
really
my people.
One of the first person shooters.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. having my people here. And it's so weird because it was not, that wasn't a thing.
No, it wasn't a thing,
and it was just
LAN parties didn't exist.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
was not a thing.
That was a LAN party.
Online first-person shooter gaming. That was the one. Right?
Okay, so what did this this whole love of Atari and what did that do for your career?
So, you know, as I had mentioned, I always wanted to be a video game designer. You know, I wanted to be a developer. Always. It's like, it's, I know it's not unique. Everybody wants, you know, it's like not everybody, but a lot of people, they want to do it.
From our generation, not.
Yeah.
There were, if you knew, I think now it is because all these kids grew up with Nintendo.
Sure.
No, but I think the percentages are probably the same.
Yeah.
It's just that the percentage of people from our generation, there's less people, but a lot of them wanted to be video game designers. I think now, if you same amount of kids, it's just there's so many more that it's seemingly not.
I just remember, you know, wanting to do that, and so I knew that going through school that, well, I need to go get a degree in computer science. Well, obviously that's what you do, right? And so everything was going up to that, and I went off to college, and, you know, I didn't really try to make a whole bunch of stuff on my own. You know, I did mess around with like GFA Basic, but I didn't really have like the information. You know, we didn't have the internet there to be able to look stuff up, and, you know, it's like there was always this gap. Again, we talked about like the gap of what I have and what I need to have to get to a point where I can do something. Well, the problem was, and sometimes that gap is really small, but you just don't know it. You don't know that.
There's some secret knowledge.
Yeah, it's, you know, if you, you know, it's like you can go to your previous stuff and say, here, this is what you need.
Right.
Read that. Here's this software. You're golden.
Right, exactly.
And there's nobody there doing that.
If you think on the Atari 8-bit, that started to come out in the early years of that. The ST never really came out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff's out there, but it's in German and other languages.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah, doing the development, I know that was a lot harder. Yes, there was more options. You know, like GFA Basic was definitely one. Stas is another one. But yeah, like doing assembly, that wasn't a thing. C was available. I remember I had a compiler, but I didn't know how to actually, you know, make it do what I wanted to do, and not having the manual, you know, that kind of thing. Little thing like the manual, to make it so that you can do it. It was always this gap, and so for me, going, you know, I went to school, and I was like, and you know, I was 17 years old, getting away from home for the first time. Yeah, school wasn't really something that I was into going
not
to.
Not easy when you're,
Yeah, and so I left after a year and came back home.
It's a very common story. Don't feel
it is. Oh, you know, it's definitely a thing. It's my story, but it's one of those things that, you know, I always had issues, not really issues, but with math. It was like always this thing that was like this hill that I couldn't.
A lot of us Atari guys have an issue with math.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, I want to do this, but I need all this math, right? Well, so I thought, you know, really.
I'll tell you one thing about I'm going to introduce you. Yes, we were this way. And I know people complained about the new math, the Common Core math. When I looked at my kids doing Common Core math, it was all applied mathematics, and I'm like, if this was the math I had, I would have excelled, because I think we're probably in the way where if it's applied to something like making a game or something,
thinking,
totally understand it.
Because you care about it.
Yes.
And you care about it. That's the big thing.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
I know you're a musician, and so you have both some really good left and right brain tendencies. When it comes to when I said I'm left-brained when it comes to music. I am left-brained, two left brains, but I think I'm very, very like the Atari generation. And a lot of us that are like this hybrid creative, slightly technical people who the only niche we could find was things like this, where like it's not pure math. Like, yeah, math is great, let's do this stuff, but I don't just want to do math, right? Like math gets you the goal, but it's not.
It's a means to an end.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Is like, you know, when I started taking some of these math classes and computer classes and stuff, and you know, I remember taking this one computer class, and I had taken classes later, but it was like they were doing stuff like a game, but it wasn't a game; it was a simulation, and I'm like, you're sucking the fun out of it. Well, you could have made this so much cooler, but yet you went this other route, and it's just like, you know, I would probably spend 10 times the amount of effort had you made this something more cool.
No, we're gonna simulate the nitride cycle. And that's it. And
and it's just like, you know, and that's one of my things with teaching. You know, like I always feel like, you know, I've had people come to me, they want to learn the program, they want to learn stuff. My go-to is games.
Games, right? Exactly.
Because it teaches you so many different ways to do it, and you learn so much, and you're able to apply that right away. You know, one of my go-tos is a dice roller for D&D.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's like, it's like, oh,
you get all these that. Oh, you got random numbers. Yes. How to see, whatever. It's how to see the random number. All these things that go on. Those aren't things people think of. You think about programming language.
Yeah, they think of
like
math.
The games, the game stuff that just the basics of making a game that has nothing to do with like angles and velocity and those things. Just making a random number and putting the output on the screen can be a revelation to a kid.
Oh yeah,
it's like,
I could get something on the screen. I remember when I first started doing stuff with, you know, any of the game programming or anything, getting something on the screen and then be able to move it.
Right. Exactly.
Oh my God, it was like I could do so much with this now.
Hey guys, this is Ed from Mission Ed Possible. If you'd like more Atari content, be sure to check out my YouTube channel or go to missionedpossible.com. We have tutorials, game reviews, and all kinds of Atari goodness. Hope to see you there.
So what did you do after college?
So I came back and I actually got a job. Because I was kind of just working at a grocery store, and just kind of I went to community college at that point, met my wife at that point, and I was just kind of going through the motion, and you know, I took a lot of electives, and I just was spinning my wheels, and the deal was I had a friend of mine who was working at a local company. It was a mail order company. And he's like, you want a job doing, you know, computer stuff? I'm like, well, I haven't finished school. You know, I was like, it's kind of, there's a lot of people that still have the opinion that, well, if you want to do computer stuff, you have to get a degree.
Right, yeah.
What?
Except for Steve Wozniak,
right? Yeah, except for like all these other guys.
Except for the guy that created the industry.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to do this. Well, but that's just the mindset, you know. And he's like, hey, you don't need that. Can you do the work? Yeah. And we were just starting doing stuff. So it was doing all sysadmin work, network administration, I learned so much stuff. I was doing, you know, Novell, and I was doing all these things, and I just kind of fell into sysadmin work. And that was something that in college, I started working with Unix, and so I was like, oh, this is kind of neat, you know, the whole multi-user thing, and so I started doing that and started getting, you know, more and more in there, and I was like. But I was living in a small town. Pay wasn't great, and there was nowhere I could go. So I was like, okay, well, we got to move to the Bay Area, and that was the thing, and that's what we ended up doing. So so I just kept going with sysadmin for the most part.
And you had worked at a large online retailer for a long time. We don't
yes,
name it.
Yes, I did. So yeah.
Or not retailer, but
retail marketplace. There you go.
So you're sysadmin, and you're like, okay, so how do you return to it? Is there a return to Atari?
Well, kind of. There's been I've gone through these lulls and stuff of kind of going, you know, I really would like to, you know, have some of this Atari stuff again. And like I would go to garage sales and just start hoarding. Yeah. And I was just hoard, and then like I'd put stuff in my basement and just keep giving all this stuff, and my wife would be like raising her eyebrow going, okay, whatever. And you know, I'm buying cheap stuff. I'm not paying hardly any money for anything. And I just started accumulating. And I'm like, well, I gotta get rid of this stuff at a certain, because we were gonna like refinish our basement. I'm like, all right. And what I had had the kids who were at that point probably 10 years old or whatever, like having them test out games and cleaning them and
To
stuff.
make sure that they were.
Yeah, you gotta make sure you gotta do the alcohol, yeah, because I had a bunch of 2600 games. Like, okay, here's how you clean games, and showing them the ropes and all that, and having them test it, and they play more than they test, but you know, whatever. Funny enough, their favorite was Freeway. I'm like, all right, cool. I think as a kid, I hated the game, but you know what?
We all
cool.
were thinking Frogger. They weren't.
Yeah,
They were
exactly.
They're thinking.
So why would a chicken go left or
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Chickens go straight.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so I started getting all this stuff, and it was just I liked the tangible stuff. I had really been still into emulation for all the years, and so, but it was more of I was really into MAME. I was really into the arcade stuff because that was always we had talked about the lesser. Well, when you could play the real thing, it's like, this is the real thing, with certain exceptions, but the idea is that you could have that same experience. But I also was into, it's like, let's do the 2600, 800, all the ST stuff and all that. So I was really into that at one point. And then it kind of fell off, I had sold them a bunch of stuff. And then I started getting back into it. It's just this roller coaster thing. And I really wish I'd have just kept everything. Yeah. That would be great. But I also would need a whole other house to hold it all. So
I remember being
really
eBay in like 2001. I remember going, hey, you know what? I'd like to get an Atari 100 again. I remember looking at some of those listings. There were like hundreds of boxed games. Someone's selling their entire system, and it's like $100.
Oh my God!
And nowadays, I'm like, oh my God! I really wish I should get that. I'm like, where am I going to put it? Right? What am I doing?
All the excuses not to, and now you're kicking yourself.
Oh my God! I could have had, what was in that box set of
There
stuff.
was one purchase that I made back at the exact same time that I did make. I was really happy about. I went to a Goodwill, and in a corner they had a bunch of Atari 2600 cartridges. They had about 50 of them laying out, and they said they had stickers on them over the labels that said bric-a-brac, 25 cents. And so I got like 10 of them that I liked, and I went back and said, I'm getting all 50. So I still have all 50,
nice.
But I had to get all those labels
because
it's like,
was it on cartridge only?
On the cart. They're on the cartridge. Yeah, not in the box. But still, it was cool that they just didn't know what they were. They just threw it up in the electronics.
That doesn't happen anymore.
There was one of you guys talking about that. You only bought like 2 of them.
Oh, that was the 5200 games at the 99-cent store. There were only 2.
At the 99-cent store?
Yeah, yes, I got Berserk and Pac-Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there were only 2 different ones, but you could have got multiple.
Yeah.
No, what I mean is there were only 2 of them.
Oh, there were.
Yeah.
So now So you're getting into programming now. This is what you're doing. So you made. You start. Forget that. Your YouTube channel. So you get into games. So when does this start?
So the YouTube channel, I started back 2 years now. 2 years ago, a friend of mine and I were like, we wanted to do something, on YouTube, just because it's like, well, that's what people are doing, and we didn't really have kind of ideas of exactly what we wanted to do. It was originally we were kind of thinking of something like a gamified challenges kind of thing. And so I started doing, I wanted to get healthy, so I was working out. So we're filming workouts, and so my first videos on there were all about like learning new things and doing things where I would, I would level up, and so I actually had like level up things.
Kind of like a video game-esque.
Yeah. So it was like gamification, and the problem was that it was cool, but it didn't fit any particular audience, and so it was like we were like, okay, well, we'll put up some videos. We didn't really know what we're doing. I did one with like cold shower challenge, and I had a few different ones, and we were like, let's just try different things. And one of the ones that was kind of a one that showed a little bit of promise was I did some Go programming videos. I was like, let me do was it Advent of Code with Go. And I was like, because I had done a little bit of Go, and I did some Go for work and stuff, and so I was like, I can do this. And so I was just learning it, and I was really just like, let me learn it on film, which was not really a great way to do a video, but whatever. I did that, and the deal was that I found that these videos were actually kind of showing more promise, and I was like, maybe doing more instructional kind of videos, and some of it's instructional, but it's also not. It's like learn with me kind of thing. It's like, because I'm not claiming to be an expert at anything,
Right.
you know, that I do. But it's like when I started doing the adventure series, it was kind of like, you know what? I'm learning a bunch of stuff here. I would like to share this with other people, because I felt like once I kind of broke through that gap, like I was talking about, of having the information I needed, the problem was I found like there was a lot of content out there, but it wasn't in a easily digestible form. They would show you a little bit of information, but it's like, well, what's the next step? Or in some cases, what's the first step?
What's the first step?
Yeah, because that's always a hard thing. It's like, you know, if somebody goes, here's a completed game, good luck.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you begin?
Yeah, where do you begin?
Yeah, and that's the hardest part.
It's funny, Jeff and I learned that in the 2000s. We started a website where we put up tutorials to make games, like game development tutorials in Flash, and we got the amazing engagement for like 5 or 6 years, because people wanted to come learn how to do stuff. And what we learned was, and we actually made some games and put them up for viral stuff. We never really made much money on them, even if they were played like millions of times. Very little money. What we made money on was we wrote a book about programming that made way more money than ever making a game.
I imagine.
And so it's like, so what we learned was like, oh yeah, like people teaching people stuff is actually, if you can find the right angle, is actually maybe a better route than just trying to make your own.
Yes, and you know, we found that out. We Ray, my business partner, and I, we found that out when we were making. We made a game on Steam, and we're actually going to be re-releasing it soon.
Oh, that's cool.
And we found, like, you know, because it was in Unity, and we found that there's a whole like marketplace of all of these plugins and stuff that you could get, and people were selling those. And what's funny is, so stuff that's adjacent or helping other people will make you more money than the thing.
Yes, and you're like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so it's like,
it's kind of like you're selling the dream.
You're selling the dream.
Yeah, exactly.
You're selling it. You're helping them with that. So I remember one of the things we made the most money off was I made an engine on. There's a place you can sell game engine to make a Pac-Man game.
Okay.
And it had some pretty elaborate, but doesn't matter. I was sold 300 copies of that at $10 a piece. Right?
Oh, wow.
So over a while, that's fueled our paying for our hosting for a while.
Yeah.
So you gave all the code away.
But I had to give away all the code.
That's the thing, but yeah, but that's part of the process. That's kind of, it's a very different way of thinking. You know, it's the normal thing of like, no, we need to keep all this close to our chest. We got to release this and then sell a bunch of copies and stuff. It's like, actually, you don't need to.
If you're lucky, you can do it.
Yeah.
Like if you're lucky. If you're not, then you won't make any money. So so you started this as a roguelike. How many episodes are you?
So wait. What? So you're making programming videos now?
Oh, okay.
Is this for the 8-bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Atari 8-bit.
And assembly language. All on his.
Amazing. I mean,
Yes.
now I got to start watching these.
Yes.
So tell me about it. How did you get
Okay, so the idea was that, as I was mentioning, there's this gap of saying, you know, okay, you know, I've read a lot of the books, you know, Generation Atari and all these different books, and it's all really cool, but it doesn't actually give you a project like you're going.
It's not
through.
step by step.
It's a lot of ways that, you know, if you look at modern teaching of programming, at least online, not in school, but online, it's like, we're going to make a Twitter client, you know, that's like the one that comment, or we're going to make a to-do list, you know, these are like programming, you know, how we learn a language. And the deal is, it's showing you, and the good ones are showing you soup to nuts, everything you need to do, not just showing you bits and pieces. And the problem is like, yeah, if you're good, you can kind of go, okay, this is all I need and whatever. If you've already done it before, you can get the pieces. But if you need to know step by step everything you need to do, there's a lot of times they don't have any hand holding on that. And I was finding that a lot because I had wanted to do an assembly language game on the Atari 8-bit, because, you know, we had talked about it. It's like that was kind of the holy grail at that time of, basic sucks, I want to make something in assembly, and everything I could find out there, even books, everything was like, showing basic program, basic, you know, oh, you need display list stuff, basic. I'm like, damn it, I want assembly. Yeah, and it's like, and I understand, you know, why, because basic's easy and assembly is hard. That's total bull. It's one of those things that, you know, it's one of those things that I needed to show the path as I was learning it, because I was like going, hey, all I need to do is do this one piece and connect the dots here. this is information that people would like.
I'll tell you
and I
why.
don't think people are doing this. You know?
Assemblies.
No, that sounds amazing.
That's the thing. You're actually doing what you actually. One of the great things about what you're doing is you're doing what we all have needed, but you're putting it together.
Yes.
Because I would read through assembly language books, and I think purposely they would leave the thing out you needed. This is the thing.
Yeah.
You make some code, and it's like, well, how do I run it? Yeah. And they're all, oh, you poke the memory location into here, and it's like, no, I want to put it on a disk as an exe and run it. Oh, well, you go into DOS and you say L and you give it the location. No, I want to make an exe and run. You know what I mean? Like, how do I do the one thing that I want to do so I can have a program? In BASIC, I can even it's in compiled BASIC, I can compile it into a PRG and it runs, or a COM and it runs. Yeah. Where do I make my COM file? And it's like, so anyway, you don't have to do it that way
because
because
things about things like pinball construction set and STOS and even
they give you packaging.
If you ever play click and play for the Windows 3.1, this is made by the STOS guys. You know, all of them have their limitations. Actually, I would say pinball construction set is still probably the most amazing piece of software ever made, but they have the limitations of what you can do. But at the end of the day, you get an exe or you get an executable that you can give to someone, and to people like us, that's the most important thing is having something to show. Like, we want that. So this is amazing.
So start with your process. You started with wanting to do that, and I interrupted you. So let's so your goal was to make a game. You got these going, and how did you decide? And I've watched all the videos. I still have not been able to implement any because I haven't had time. But you start very simple, but the game you're making is very complex. So explain how you wanted to make this, because it's got all the elements of an Atari. Like, if you watch your video series, you can actually go make almost any game in the Atari 8-bit once you do this. You have multicolored sprites, you have display lists, you have how to make scrolling maps. Like, everything is included in this one roguelike. Of course, and some algorithms that are pretty interesting for doing new things that you have, like the random dungeons and things like that. How did you start?
How did I start?
Yes.
So really, I for whatever reason, I've always wanted to make a roguelike, because it's like Rogue is one of those games that I've just always loved it on how much detail that was in it from such an early time, and so it's like, of course, I didn't want to try to make everything in there. There's so many things in there. It's like, no. But I wanted to make something substantial, and I didn't want to make like the typical games that people make. I've gone through, our last game was the Falling Blocks game. All these kind of games that are very typical that people do. It's like, I want to make this kind of game. So I was just like, well, one of the things that I was learning about was the fact that you can use the character sets as tiles. Right. And I was like, okay, so a tile-based game. And then, so because in the mode that we're using, it's actually, half of a character. So it's actually only 4x8 wide. And so, okay, we got to use 2 of those to make a tile that's square, And so I started kind of thinking about how that was going to work together. And once I could get like, 4/5 colors on the screen at once with all these tiles, I started thinking, it's like, oh wow, I can make all kinds of games.
So are you moving? Is the character moving 4 pixels at a time then?
The character does not move. The map moves 8
moves.
characters at a time.
Okay.
Yes, the character is standard like Ultima style, where it actually the UI looks very Ultima-like.
That's fine.
And the character is fixed, and the map moves around him. And so I'm not dealing with animation of like up down. I will be adding more for the player missile, but the player is a player of the player missile graphics. The background is all character based. So using Antic Mode 5 for most of it, because it's square pixels and all that. So the big thing with this is the fact that developing something and you guys probably know this, developing something when you're trying to teach it is very different than developing it on your own. It's because
you need to simplify it.
Yeah, well, you have to. Not only that, every line of code
you
have to be able to explain it. I have to be able to justify this line of code to somebody.
Well, you learn it that way.
Also, you learn that. Plus, you start breaking it into modules so you could show one module at a time.
And that's the thing. And one of the challenges that I've had, especially with the more recent ones, is the map generation stuff, because that's a big topic. And we knew this was going to be a thing at the beginning. It's like, how are we going to do map generation? There's tons of different ways to do it. and how do we do this to where it's going to be simplified enough to where I can do it and I can explain it to somebody. And so the deal was, though, that it's going to be like 3 or 4 videos, and we're like on episode 3 of that, of doing this map generation. How do I break it up so that I don't break the guy's game while they're developing?
Right.
You know? Okay, so they do all this stuff and then they're waiting for the next thing.
Yeah, because it doesn't run anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
every time you're done, you have something they could run.
yes, exactly. And that was the idea. It's like, okay, so now you have a little bit more. Now you have a little bit more. And now today we're going to be doing this to add doors, and we're going to add this stuff to add more rooms.
Yeah,
and all
when we
that
were
stuff.
writing books, it's exactly the same thing. It's like
You hit the end of a chapter, you're like, uh-oh, they
Yeah.
have to be able to run it at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, and you can paint yourself into a corner, and you know it's challenging, but it's cool. You know, it's one of those things that we've talked about in our videos of, do we want to do more tutorials? And it's like, tutorials are cool, but the problem with them is they're not really entertaining from a point of view of, if you are in the mindset of, I want to make a game for this platform, doing this kind of thing, great. But if you're into just, I just want to watch something cool on YouTube.
Right, exactly.
Watching a 20, 30, 40 episode series that's a half hour, 45 minutes each, probably not high on your list. You know, you want something, a 10-minute like show and tell of going, well, first I did this, and this I did, and boom, there's a game. Yay! You know?
Let's talk about that a little bit. So in your YouTube endeavors, it's hard, you know. It's at one point we're like, let's just make things that are 6 minutes long, because that's what all people are gonna watch, right? So we started doing these crack the seal things that are really short, but are like, you know, that are like, you know, just having
cracking
fun.
the seal 6 minute long, and then the gameplay 6
Right,
minute long.
but
This
there's-
one is like 6 minutes.
But in other times, you know, like we were putting our whole podcast episodes up, and they're just like one image that runs the whole. I'm like, who's gonna want to watch that? Like, that doesn't seem right. So like, how are you finding like the balance of the content, you know, from long to short, and what should be inside and whatnot?
I will say, like, I have listened to podcasts that are videos, which I will say that there is one thing, you know, I would say that yes, there is that whole, you need to have something on the screen, but there is a certain amount of YouTube being ubiquitous in the fact that you don't have to have another platform or anything. It's just like, all right, yeah, fine, I'll put that on and put it in the background while I'm doing something.
If you're on your computer.
It's valuable. I think it's a valuable thing.
And there is one thing, podcasts, no matter how people have distributed them and know how many podcast readers you have and listeners and platforms and stuff, they're still not easy to find.
Even though it's
ubiquitous, you can search.
Discoverability.
You can find them all over the place.
Yes.
But which link do I click on? And it's on my phone. That's easy to find. But if you put them on YouTube, which we haven't really done, we did the video. You could publish directly there if we wanted to.
Yeah, we could do that.
The thing is,
we'll talk about that.
I mean,
short form versus long form content. So we played around, like when YouTube launched Shorts. We were like, let's try that out, and we did a little bit of things, but. For the most part, you know, the keeping the size, the video down. You know, I have done some videos where I have the Ed Bites videos where I would just do like a kind of I have a hard time with review for a lot of the newer stuff because, you know, it's like reviewing a game that someone just put out. I have a hard time with that because it's like, I don't want to hurt that guy's feelings.
Me either. He's around.
But a 2600 game, I can review that all day long. It's okay. It's 4 years old.
100% correct. It's like also,
I don't want that guy to be mad.
Exactly.
I want him as a viewer.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to trash this game. So, but usually it's a look at some games. So, like I did like Dread. I don't know if you've seen that on ST, and you know, basically Doom on the ST. You know, and stuff like that where I'll do a video and. Those are cool, but it's, you know, and it's you know, retro related and all that stuff. But truly, I feel like the content that I think that I really wanted to go for is more education based, more you know, showing them something that they haven't already seen. Yes, the advice can do that, but some of the stuff is like 2,600 games. It's like, oh, this is why River Raid's cool. You know?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, everybody does that. You know. You know,
it's hard not to though. I mean, it's fun sometimes.
Yeah, and the thing is keeping that balance of doing stuff that is fun and doing stuff that is more better for the channel. It is challenging. You know, one of the things that we started off with is I was like, okay, we want to hit 4,000 hours to be able to be monetized. Well, what's a good way of getting a lot of watch hours? Streaming. because you have a captive audience, you know.
Right.
So I started doing my streams on Sundays for ST games, and thankfully the ST community was really, you know, they really liked that, and they were
a hungry community for good content.
Oh, yeah.
They've been slapped around by the V guys
yeah,
for
exactly,
35 years.
exactly. So being an ST guy, you know, it was like, you know, so I'd get my regulars. Well, what's funny is those guys have been coming to my 2600 streams.
Oh, cool.
And so it's kind of cool to say, hey,
Because they're not, they didn't really have the 2600.
No,
much.
no,
They
and
didn't-
even-
They had
and-
these first either, so like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. So it's definitely been cool. Yeah. So we kind of balance. We try different things, you know, as far as what would be good content. We're going to be probably doing some more stuff with, say, like electronics and stuff like that. I'd like to do stuff that's kind of adjacent. You know, people that I know all the retro community will be enjoying it as well.
Right.
You know, but it's not completely the same.
Yeah,
You said
Generation
you're-
Tech and electronics, I've
you
seen
said you're
people
pretty
get
handy.
really big
What?
with those things.
Pretty handy. So you can, if you show some stuff like, here's a bunch of STs I got from the Fultons that I'm
There
going
you
to
go,
fix
exactly.
on
Go
video.
listen to Into the Vertical Blank there.
Well, I would say then you can actually put them, you can put that content in.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
looking at those things, one of the most interesting things that I find is the guy that shows the old dusty computer. He cleans it out a little bit, then he puts in a game and plays it. I want to see that thing playing the game. Like I want to see like I'm just on the SP. I've seen Pac-Man 100 times, right?
Yeah.
But this is a old Vic 20 playing Jelly Monster.
There
It's
you
like, I'm
go.
just on, hey, and then I'm like, I'm gonna take a nap while Jelly Monster's on. You know what I mean? Like, because I can. It's just so very soothing to like. You know.
It is there is I have noticed some content that people will do. They'll take a 2600 game, they'll take it out of the case, they'll put it in the machine, they'll turn it
It's
on.
very ASMR though.
And yeah, it's an ASMR thing, and it's just it's an experience, and that's actually kind of what I was getting back to. Of like, you know, I used to be into, well, I still am into emulation, but actually having the physical product, there is something that you can't get from emulation. That's actually having the thing in your hands and being able to look at it, you know.
Well, that's what Crack the Seal is all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for you're very disappointed in our video quality, which we are too. We are too. It's just that it's anyway. I just
We'll talk about that.
talk about that some other time. Yeah.
We should do it better.
Yeah, we should do better. Exactly.
I was saying, should I have my arm up here too? Because that's what you guys are like.
Yeah,
oh, you see his arm.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's like that. Actually, I zoom in.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
arms.
but you zoom in, but then it does this.
Well,
I don't know why.
it has to pan.
I don't know.
It has to pan because there's things that are like, oh shit, we moved it. Like,
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No, that would be better to do it on a thing down or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway. So there's, you got the video channel. Did you ever move to PC games? Like, what was your?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got to, I think it was around 94-ish that we got a 486 DX280. That was our,
Wow.
and that was like. That was we finally, because you know, my dad, you know, we needed some help with the business. I wanted to do like bookkeeping on it and stuff, and so we got a machine that was actually a PC, and it was like, and by that time it was like, wow, worlds different than any of the ST stuff. It was a total paradigm shift at that point, you know. And I had seen people, you know, playing Doom and all that, but being able to play those games, you know, Descent and all
I know
those games,
Windows and stuff like
my
that too,
God, yeah. It was so much cooler, and I just remember, you know, at that point the CD-ROM was starting out there. It was like Seventh Guest, you know, stuff like that, and it was just a completely different game at that point. And so yeah, so at that point, pretty much ST was gone. You know,
Well,
there was no reason.
There was
to
a
mess with
point,
ST.
and people like to they like to hit on Windows 95 and stuff like that.
I don't know. Windows 95 was amazing.
The something like the Mac or the Amiga might have won the PC war if Windows 95 didn't come out. Because we got to the PC in 92 and we're loading up games in DOS, typing in commands, having to use the DOS shell to load things. It was bananas for a modern computer.
Also
Moving from
memory
ST.
management and all
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff.
You
Moving from
ST. Yeah.
to that was going back in time. As
Yeah.
soon as Windows 95 came out, it was like, and they DirectX and stuff, it was like Microsoft knew what they're doing. They created, even faults and all, It's what made the new.
Hey man, 95 between 3.1 and 95 was huge. I remember. Yes, there were problems. It wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
But it was so much better.
Just playing that
3.1.
pinball game that came
out. There you
That's what's
go.
so amazing about Click and Play, which is the game creator for Windows 3.1, is that it's really the only way you could make, you could make any other content
Windows
for Windows
games,
3.1.
Right.
When 95 came out, all of a sudden games were actually made in Windows, which is
Yeah, because you could run them. You could actually run them in a shell versus having to go out.
Right.
I remember, Q95, running quick, and being able to launch it from within Windows. This was a weird,
It's a big
concept.
deal.
Yeah.
Well, we come from an ST where you put in the disk, you launch thing, launches, and suddenly in Windows, I can't launch my game. I have to go to DOS and make a new config.
Auto-exec bat.
Auto-exec bat for Windows games. This became a programming. It became almost
a
like
little bit.
programming.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I see people talk about batch language, looking at it, oh, is that programming?
Yeah, well, it is kind of. It can do well if you look at it. It can do the different things that supporting those studios. So it's okay, sequence, selection, iteration, whatever. But
Exactly.
So I'd say we probably should wrap this up.
yes. So Ed, what you're on as part of our programming series because we want to talk about programming the various Atari, and we keep on doing it and then stopping, but it probably stop again. I don't know. But we want to do some stuff on the 2600 and the 8-bit and the ST Atari machines for the most part, maybe even the Lynx at some point.
Sure.
So we don't know exactly where we're going to go with on this, but we want to have you on to talk about it and see what we can do in the future.
Hey everybody, it's Bill from Atari Bytes. Every week on my show I play a great old game, then I read an original short story I wrote inspired by that game. Loosely inspired. Okay, often completely different. Sometimes not even based in any sort of reality. In contrast, on Into the Vertical Blank, which you're listening to right now, you get real stories about real people and what these games mean to them. So keep listening.
Hey everyone, this is Michael, one of the hosts of the Atari XEGS Cart by Cart podcast. Do you like Atari? Of course you do. What about the 8-bit computer line? It was one of the best. Well, how about you consider joining Bill, David, Kieran, and myself as we review the cartridge-based games for Atari's 8-bit computer line. We also review budget games which are mostly released only in the UK. But that's not all. We also dig up game history, share personal experiences, and perform questionable comedy. You'll get all of that and for free just by listening to us on either iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Player FM, or from our website at xegs8bit.com. That's xegs, the number 8bit.com. And when you're done listening, please send us your hate mail, because we really need the feedback so we know someone is tuning in.
Hi, this is Ballistic Coffee Boy, host of That Atari Show. On That Atari Show, I feature Atari news, homebrews, game reviews, Atari podcasts, Atari books, interviews with content creators, game developers, and more, as well as have the occasional feature where I focus on one topic or product. On my channel, I also feature breaking Atari news on Atari Newsline, unbox retro goodies on Unboxed, Google over box art and manuals in RTFM, feature general vintage gaming content on BCB, and more. You can find me on YouTube by searching for Ballistic Coffee Boy. That's Ballistic with a K. So get your Java on and let's celebrate Atari, from the 2600 on through to the new Atari VCS. Hope to see you there, fellow Atarians. Have a great one.
After you left, Steve, Ed and I went to a barbecue place and had food.
That sounds good.
But it was the first day of my keto diet. So at the barbecue place, I just ate lots of meat.
Well, let's talk about diets, Jeff. Why don't we talk? We haven't done a watching, playing, reading, or catch up or anything in a while.
Yeah.
Let's start with the diet, Jeff. What are you trying to do with your diet?
Oh, well, you're in Irish frames. We have basically the same frame. You're a little taller than I am. We should hover around 190 to be healthy,
right?
At this age, and maybe 195 depending on. And I was higher than that, over to 212, 215. Now I'm at 198.
Wow!
And did that.
How did you do that?
So far, a month of keto
foods, which is close to that. Basically, you eat a lot of meat, eat a lot of eggs, eat a lot of leafy green vegetables. You don't try to eat very many carbohydrates. And I have had my treats of carbohydrates. I have had 2 In-N-Out burgers. I've had a little bit of candy on Easter. So it's not like I'm going on a crash diet or anything. Like every day I have about 2,000 calories. So it's just the right calories.
Yeah, no, I did that for the first few months of 2020 before COVID hit, and it was a keto diet, and it's really hard to keep up. And it did work. I lost a lot of weight, not eating a lot of carbs, basically. Not staying away from bread in the morning.
Bagels and wheat thins.
Yeah.
Bagels, wheat thins, and okay. Every day I would have bagels in the morning, a bagel. I'd have wheat thins in the afternoon. In the evening, I'd have some M&Ms. You know why? I was taking a nap every night for 2 hours. I wonder why. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's good. I'd love to do the same thing. So okay. So what about watching? What have you been watching?
Let me think about watching. For Jeannie and I haven't found anything much to watch together. I mean, right before we came on this, we were watching Talladega Nights. Legend of Ricky Bobby or whatever. Great movie. But the thing we just finished watching, was The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah, no, I finished watching that too.
I think the first and second episodes and the last episode was all they needed. They didn't need the rest of the show.
I disagree with you. I didn't like. I think it was like there were about 3 or 4 episodes that they needed. I didn't like the first episode at all. I think the second one was better.
Yeah, maybe it's the second one. Yeah, you're right.
The 7th and 8th ones were good. Here's the thing: all the Disney. After watching this Disney series, I understand what the deal is. All of these should just be 2.5-hour movies.
Yes.
And they're padded movies, and the padding, except for Andor's three good movies.
Andor was awesome.
Yeah, Andor's 3 good movies. The other TV series, even the first Mandalorian and even the second one, they could have been compacted into a 2.5-hour movie. Would have been great movie. It's all the extra stuff that they use to world build other TV shows that sort of get in the way of the shows, and I think it's becoming a problem. So I honestly now, after seeing the output of the Star Wars TV shows, I really wish they had just made movies. They probably would have been great. There'd be more anticipation for them. And the end, I absolutely love the end of The Mandalorian Season 3. And the reason why I love the end of The Mandalorian Season 3 is that they made The Mandalorian out at the beginning to be kind of like a Clint Eastwood man with no name sort of character. And the end of The Mandalorian is something you would have never seen Clint Eastwood do, which is settle down. Right? Except for Outlaw Josie Wales, he got into a little bit. But my point is that I thought the ending was fantastic. Like I want to see The Mandalorian having a peaceful time, sitting out in his house with his kid playing in the lawn. Like, to me, that's the greatest ending of a Star Wars TV show. So I know I saw people complaining about it. I'm like, why? Like, that was a good
It tied up the 3 seasons really well.
It tied it up and said, okay, I know where these guys are, and I don't have to worry about them anymore. Now we can move on to something else.
But sometimes I hit the Mike Zero channel on YouTube, and he says a lot. He said he's got stuff every day. But so I went to Emergency Awesome today, and he has Mandalorian Season 4 teaser 2025 breakdown and a couple of things about Ashoka and Thrawn in this. Basically, he said that this lets them reset the series back to the Western.
Yes,
and if they're going to do it, it's going to be him going out on adventures with Baby Yoda. What's his name?
Grogu.
Oh, with Grogu.
Din Grogu.
Din Grogu. Din Grogu. He said, I just realized that his first name is Jaren and his last name is Din, and they do it backwards. But he said that this allows them to. So what they were doing with the Mandalorians, because it was so good from the first season, that they wanted to bring people into the other shows by having all these branching things with the Mandalorian. And so what they did was now that's all done. And they can reset it. It could just be the show they wanted to make, which is just the Western. Right. So when it comes back, it'll be the Western, and these other things have all sprouted from it. So I was like, okay, that sounds
And then they're
right.
also planning a Heir to the Empire movie that's supposed to combine all of these new shows into a final
And that's Thrawn, right?
And that's later, yeah. So yeah, I watched Star Wars too. I was enjoying that, but kind of mad at it, but kind of wondering what was going on with it. But I think all in all, you could edit the episodes down into a pretty good movie, just like people have done with Obi-Wan as well. They've made a pretty good movie out of it. They've actually added, there's people who've added special effects and
I
stuff.
need to check that out.
So also Ted Lasso, which I don't know if you watch,
I watched Ted Lasso. I just have not started the season yet. Of course, I watched Ted Lasso. How could I not watch Ted Lasso?
I don't know. You didn't mention it. You said you didn't watch anything.
Well, it's a soccer show. It's not really a soccer show, but it is at the same time.
Perry Mason on HBO, which started out slow, but it's actually pretty good now. And then I think the last episode is next week. And then the last one I would say is the first episode of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch came out.
Is it The Secret? Yeah. Yeah.
Or The Mystery or whatever.
That Skinwalker Ranch one was really good because the scientist got to admit that he works for the government, or he did work for the government.
He's also a big Ancient Aliens guy, and I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of the whole thing, but I was skeptical of the whole thing before, but now I'm even more skeptical of the whole thing. So that's watching. What about playing? What are you playing?
All kinds of,
besides every Atari ST game ever made.
Asteroids games for the VCS 2600 ST. I'm literally not playing anything else at the moment. I'm making videos, going research on all these ones. So that's what I've been doing is Asteroids games on the consoles and computers by Atari, and then also the vertical shooters. And I started on 2600 vertical shooters, and I found, so the game is Space Chase, and the person who created it's Ed Salvo. And Ed Salvo, the first game he did was he made a game called Skeet Shoot, just in his basement. He was one of the first guys to make a game like the Activision guys. He made it in his basement. He sent it to a company, and they said, "We'll do that. We'll put that out," and they did. And then they loved his game, Space Chase, so much that they made him head of. They sold 1 million cartridges of Space Chase. Okay, they made him the head of development. They were rolling in $500,000 a month. And this company went out of business after only putting out a few 2600 games. You're making $500,000 a month. How did you go out of business?
Yeah, I think even they were one of the first crash companies, as if I recall. Like Games by Apollo went out. It was the ones that were selling really cheap first.
There's an incredible channel out there that I watch all the time. It's an Atari Archive channel. He's doing it. His episode 64 is on Space Chase and Space Jockey. So I watched that, and then I went and played Space Chase. I said, "This is great." So I thought maybe I'll do 2600 vertical shooters next. There aren't that many of them, but anyway, check out his channel, Atari Archive. It's a fantastic channel. He's going through all the Atari 2600 cartridges the same way that the guy goes through all the NES cartridges. Very cool. Neat history. Anyway, so that's what I've been doing. What about you playing, Steve?
I played some Dungeon Master. I was trying to figure out what to make a new movie about after I did that Lost Dutchman Mine one. Our well-reviewed but not quite so successful movie on YouTube. I was trying to think, should I do Dungeon Master? Because I have some interesting stuff about Dungeon Master from FTL. I tried Sundog and tried to play that. Nah, I can't. I like the idea of Sundog, but I can't really play it. Dungeon Master, I still want to try to do.
I think you wouldn't be able to finish Dungeon Master. That's just a thing to get something.
No, it's not about finishing.
Don't make these about finishing. It's going to be way too.
It's a different story. So finishing was that one, but this is a different thing about Dungeon Master. Then I played the Star Wars arcade game because I was thinking, you know what, I should re-edit a couple of our old episodes that were about the Star Wars arcade game and put it together as a different kind of thing. That's still
pending.
That's still on the docket. That's still a possibility. I'm working on the edit right now to see if that'll work. But I had fun playing the Star Wars arcade game via MAME, and then I replayed all of Diablo Diablo 3 on the PlayStation 5 and got up to level 70 and finished everything. And now I'm just preparing for when Diablo 4 comes out in June. Diablo 3 is to RPGs as Space Invaders is to flying the space shuttle.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it's but knowing about our friend who has cancer and loves Diablo 3 and was always our dungeon master, to him it's the best way to spend time playing. Hopefully when 4 comes out, we can get it for him for his birthday or something like that.
It's really the extension of a game like Gateway to Apshai, or even I wouldn't say Gauntlet because it's not really like that. It's more like Apshai. It's more like Gateway to Apshai, where it's a continuous dungeon. You keep fighting, but the thing is your levels. It's all about maximizing your equipment and the numbers for your equipment and your levels and stuff like that. And at some point you become nearly invincible, and then it's just super fun. Then you just run around.
In Gateway you can't save your game, so I was thinking I think there's 9 levels in the Atari 8-bit one. I'd love to play that game over again, so I may do a video of each level, playing through each level, and then cut it down or something like that.
That would be fun.
Maybe it'll be a live stream or something like that, because I don't have to edit any video.
The thing about Gateway to Apshai and those games is there is no end game, and so I think it's what they missed back in the day was having an end game or something to have you win the game.
Well, a game that didn't do that, Steve, was Dragon Stomper. It had a definite end game on the 2600.
I do think you should do a playthrough of Dragon Stomper. I think that would be good.
I still have the movie of Dragon Stomper and the playthrough. I'm good. I don't want to play through on video or live stream. I just don't have time to do it. But I would play all 3 sections of it, all 3 tape loads, and show beating the dragon if I can.
So have you done anything on your own Atari 2600 development, reading the book?
I have read a little bit of the book. I've not touched any code. This is what happened. Okay, I'll tell you about my development. So I'm reading the book about the 2600, and then I off to the side, when I'm reading all the magazines to get all the reviews, I'm creating an Atari ST and Atari 8-bit review index, which is basically go through every magazine and then put which review was in the magazine, what the score was, and if there's no score, I kind of make it up based on their comments. And doing that, I found a basic called High Soft Basic for the ST. So I'm doing the 2600 stuff, and I wonder what High Soft Basic could do. I went over and started researching High Soft Basic with the compiler to see if there's any STE commands in it, and then I stopped doing the 2600 thing for a little while. So that's my problem. I'm like the dog with a snack. You give him a snack and he runs in the corner with his snack.
I did the same thing. So I'm like looking at the 2600 stuff, and I'm like, wow, I really want to get back to that 7000 game. I almost finished last December, but couldn't quite get it done. And then I'm like, wait a minute, would it be cool to do some stuff on the Atari Lynx? And then I was like, I think for me, it's hard to be trusted to finish anything these days.
Well, I'm gonna try and do something before we meet with Ed again. So we're doing something with Ed that we just had the interview with, and we're trying to inspire each other to do programming. So it could be you bring some other programming thing to it. Doesn't have to be 2600,
right?
Just anything,
yeah,
right? So
we'll see.
I think any coding thing is going to be fine. I think that if we change that from 2600 to be like the every other whatever we do time frame coding session where we just talk about what we did and show it off, I think it'll be an inspiration for all of us.
All right. Well, that's what I'm reading, other than these like 26 leadership books I have to get for work. So
I'll tell you what I'm reading. I got a brand new Atari ST book called The ST Game Guide, History, Hardware, and Games. It's the updated version by Carl Morris by Zaffin Books. It is about 253 pages in a sort of an A3, but smaller book. Just incredible color book all about Atari ST games. And it's got some, well, and I'll tell you one thing. Let me tell you one thing, that in the resources, in the back of here in the resources, it says something that I like. It says, let's see, where's the resources? Where can I find the resources? Anyway, in his like places to go visit, he has the Into the Vertical Blank webs. Oh, here it is. Into the Vertical Blank, Joy of Sticks, and Gears of Games websites are the 3 Atari YouTube that he has
nice.
in here. It says regularly updated video channel with lots of ST Games reviews.
That's nice. Good job.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
You're now.
Yeah, and I didn't get the book for free because
Your name is in the phone book, so now you're an actual person, like in the jerk,
phone book,
right?
like in the jerk. And I definitely am the jerk.
That's not what I meant, but you know what I'm saying. It's nice to see when people put your name in and do that type of thing. Like it's nice to see that.
Your name is in lights. Your name
That's
is in
right.
lights. Before we enter, I'm going to introduce a new Tony Longworth song to go out with. Let me tell you the name of the song. It is Puls-i, Puls-i.
Nice.
So we're going out with that one. And until next time, Steve, Into the Vertical Blank.
Into the Vertical Blank. Thanks, Jeff.
Into the Vertical Blank.
Hi, this is Tony Longworth, UK dark alternative music composer and all-round Atari nut. Make sure to check out my Patreon music campaign. That's patreon.com/Tony Longworth. Lots of free music over there. And if you can afford $1 or $2, please help me continue to write music. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast and supporting Into the Vertical Blank. And I hope you like this piece of music of mine.
the vertical blank.
Programmed in BASIC, we explored 8-bit worlds. Pixels crashed onto a digital shore. All our records were scratched. Left alone, we were latchkey children, terrified of nuclear war. In the glow of the cathode ray, every game we play on our 2600 into the vertical blank. Our highest scores have been ranked. Into the vertical blank. Generation Atari. Into the vertical blank. Generation Atari.
Next frame calculated. Prepare to write new data. V blank ending.
An 8-bit Rocket Studios production.